Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Happy Sunday to all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, how long do you think it'll take, or what do you think would be the threshold to drive people to have food riots? Where you live, where we live, it doesn't matter what country it is, doesn't matter what city it is. There will be a time when people are desperate enough to go out in the street and loot for food. Not for Gucci bags, not for watches, not for flat screen TVs, but for food. Ladies and gentlemen, before I get into this, please listen to this message. It's only a few seconds long.
Alright guys, welcome back. This is Joseph of Survival Living. That's right. We're losing the CFP because, hey, we lost our original channel. Yep. So we're actually starting off on one of our backup channels. This was a tool channel to begin with. I'm not going to let this setback keep me from teaching outdoor survival and prepping. We're going to continue that. So we no longer have access to our original channel, which has over 36,000 subscribers. I spent the last 3 years working on that channel. I'm talking about close to 70 hours a week doing that.
So if you are subscribed or were subscribed to Survival Living, please go over to his channel and resubscribe to his new channel. I will be leaving a link to his new channel or his backup channel on a pinned comment, and I will also leave it on the description of this video. Alright ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and get back to this video. So for many of you that don't know what the Arab Spring was, it's something that happened around 2011, and there were several countries, some of which were Syria, Tunisia, and Egypt. And in those countries, inflation was so high that the average family had to spend upward of 40%, if not more, of their income in order to be able to afford just the basic staples so that they can survive. It doesn't matter whether the Arab Spring occurred in the countries that I aforementioned. It doesn't matter. Ladies and gentlemen, human nature is human nature. If a person feels like they are going to starve and they have no other way of getting food than by committing violence to get that food, you better believe it that they're going to do it. Especially if they have children or family members that depend on them to be fed. They continue to say here the prices of these commodities go up immediately, but it may take months for wages to reach a peak. And here, as we've seen lately, the prices of things just going up very rapidly. And we all know that the wages are not keeping up with the inflationary prices of those things that we need. Just take a look at gasoline this last week. That's a great example. Take a look at the price of food here for the last several months, how it's gone up in price incredibly. Another good example. So at what point will people start to riot? At what point will it be unsafe for you to go to the supermarket without a security detail? Think about that. When you go to the supermarket today, you don't worry about having a security detail. You don't worry about having your EDC on you, your pew-pew on you, because you think, hey, we live in a civilized country. We live in a civilized city, nation, whatever you want to call it. But like I said, when people get hungry enough, they will do things that they normally don't do. And those things that I mentioned, people, committing violence against others in supermarket parking lots, it's already happening. It has happened. It's just that when it gets bad enough, it will start to occur at a much larger scale. This here is an article that Chris Martinson from Peak Prosperity, and by the way, if you're not subscribed to Peak Prosperity, Dr. Chris Martinson, awesome guy. Here he goes over the 40% rule. And he says, if you are going to try and understand why revolts happen, but wanted to limit yourself to a single variable, you'll be hard-pressed to find something better than the price of food. Ladies and gentlemen, there will come a time, I'll say it again so that it can get through to you, there will come a time where people en masse will be angry enough, desperate enough to commit violence onto those that have what they want. And that will be food. There's quite a bit of research to support the idea that people who spend above a certain percent of their income on food are more likely to protest, riot, or otherwise become restive. That number seems to have a minimum threshold of 40% of income to food costs. So once a family or a person is spending 40% of what they bring in on the food that they need just to survive, they start to become very angry because no longer are they living, they are only existing. In recent years, the Middle East has been particularly affected by the cost of grain. And ladies and gentlemen, what is happening right now? That is why I do these videos, ladies and gentlemen. To some, it may be dry, boring, but we take a look at history, see what caused an event, and then see if the causation of those events in past history are occurring right now. And then we can maybe be able to better gauge the probability of what happened then happening now as well. And what is that probability? That once the price of food gets so high, that people will start to revolt. Why? Because people need to eat. And I wanted to show you a good example of how it is that inflation hits the poor, all right, or the working class a lot more than what it hits the upper class. Here it says in the UK, food accounts for about 10% of total household expenditure. Everyone has to eat, so everyone is affected by price changes. That being said, the impact of rising food prices varies according to impact. So the poorer that you are, the more that it is going to impact you percentage-wise. Richer households are more able to absorb rising costs. Poorer households who spend a greater portion of their income on food, nearer to 15%, are much more affected by it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, ask yourselves this question. Do you think that the poorer households now in the United States, I believe that the mean wage in the United States, the mean salary, what people make on average, is all the way down to the mid 30,000s. Now, if you remember a video that I did a while back, or maybe it was during a live stream, where I said that this year, American families are expected to pay between $3,000 to $5,000 more to live. Not because they're adding to their lifestyles, but just to maintain the lifestyle that they have. Now, if you are a low income earner or a low wage earner and you're making, let's say, $35,000 a year, that $5,000 is a huge chunk out of your living standard compared to someone that's making $100,000, $200,000 a year. So it affects the poor and the working class a lot more than it affects the rich. February 11, 2022. Food pantries across the country are suffering from the supply shortage. Not only are they suffering from the supply shortage, ladies and gentlemen, but I believe it was the CARES Act that gave a lot of money to food pantries. That's gone. They're not receiving that help anymore. And even food pantries are now running out of food. So if people cannot afford to eat because it's costing so much for them to feed their families, and they cannot rely on food pantries to go and get subsidized for the calories that they need, what are they going to do, ladies and gentlemen? Like I said before, they're going to get very angry. Global food prices soared in February, led by massive jumps in vegetable oil, which we've talked about, and dairy prices as well. And also, of course, we've talked about this, higher cost for grains. And I believe, it doesn't say it in this article, but something that attributes to the cost of all these foods going up is also the higher prices that we're seeing at the gas pump, ladies and gentlemen, because it costs money. It takes gasoline, it takes oil to move that food from point A to point B. The move higher in food prices comes as the Russian invasion of Ukraine set commodity markets into disarray. Now, anyone that believes that, maybe you ought to do a little bit of research, because food prices have been going up way before this Ukraine and Russia thing started. But we'll continue. They say here, which indicates prices could continue to surge and may trigger another Arab Spring. The FAO price index, a measure of the monthly change in international prices of baskets of food commodities, averaged 140.7 points in February, up 3.9% from January. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that is 4% in 1 month. That is so huge. I want people to understand that when they hear 3.9% or 4%, that is not a small number when it comes to commodity prices. And they continue to say here that that's 24.1% up compared to the same time last year. That's already more than halfway up to that 40%, ladies and gentlemen. We are at an all-time high. Back when this Arab Spring happened was back around 2011 or so, and we're already higher than that. I hope that you are preparing, ladies and gentlemen. I truly do hope that you are preparing and that you are now taking it serious. Being prepared is no longer a hobby. Right? Some people used to do it as a hobby. And I truly do hope that those that I've heard tell me over the comments, of course, in my comment section and during the live streams, those that I've heard say in the past, my husband doesn't like it when I prep because he thinks it's a waste of money, or my wife and her family are not into prepping and they think that it's weird. I hope that those are starting to come around to the realization that they need to be prepared if they want to keep their family fed in the future. And I want to go over this real quick, ladies and gentlemen, because this is pretty important. And I want you to realize something when you take a look at these numbers. It says here that the breadbasket to the world are comprised of these countries here that supply the world with most of the wheat. Now, of course, the first one being Russia and Ukraine, they supply the world with 102 million metric tons. Second place is the U.S. at 94 million metric tons. But we're going to come back to this one, okay? Other nations, besides the other ones here that are indicated, 80 million tons, 56 million for Argentina, 52 for the EU, and 40 million for Brazil. Now, I want to concentrate here on U.S., 94 million tons. Right? Russia is the second highest producer of fertilizer in the world. The U.S. didn't even come close to the top. So, if the U.S. is to continue being able to produce all of this wheat, all of this corn, all of the soybeans, all of the stuff that we produce or grow on an annual basis, we are going to need fertilizer. And most of you, I'm sure, already know, if you follow this channel, that the price of fertilizer has gone up, I would say exponentially. Some fertilizers have gone up in price 10 times, some 4. Farmers are being priced out of farming because they cannot afford to pay for the fertilizer. So do you think that with what's going on right now in the world, do you think that we, the United States, are going to be able to import enough fertilizer to continue to make these 94 million tons of wheat or of grain? Do you think we'll be able to do that? And if we do, at what price? And that's what we're talking about here today. At what price of food will people start to get upset? Because if we are able to continue to make this much food, we are going to have to pay for it one way or another. And look at this. I went over this during our last live stream. The price of wheat futures is at an all-time high. I believe it's already broken 1,200. And to finish it off, ladies and gentlemen, upending global food markets will likely mean the inflation story is far from over, as prices could track higher. Could, go ahead and change that with would. Or will. This has been a cause of concern by the president of the World Bank, warning about the damaging impacts of the conflict on global food supplies, prices, and further tangled supply chains. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that even though the United States is not an emerging market economy, meaning that it's not an economy like India or, one of the South American countries that are pretty poor, I believe that in the United States, we will see this. I believe that we will see food prices get to a point where the average person is having to spend 30, 40, 50% of their income just to feed their families. That is what's going to happen here in the United States. Why? Because inflation does one thing and one thing only. It steals the labor of the working class, and it transfers that energy to the rich, to the upper class. And the further that we go along with this inflationary crisis that we're having right now, the worse it's going to get. And he ends it by saying, with a food crisis imminent, Edwards' prediction of another round of social unrest due to soaring commodity prices could be nearing, as food prices are now above 2011 levels. This is the worst it's ever been, ladies and gentlemen, as far as their records show. They go all the way back to 1990, I believe. So brace for impact. I hope that you're getting your airbags ready. And what do I mean by airbags? By getting your pantry full, getting all of those things that you need. You are going to be so happy, ladies and gentlemen, that you prepared ahead of time. Because there are going to be so many people with thousands of dollars in the bank that are going to feel wealthy, but when they can't use those dollars to buy the food that they need, or when those dollars are devalued to a point where it will only buy them a very small percentage of what it used to, they're not going to feel wealthy at all. Make sure that your pantry is what makes you wealthy as far as the things that you need goes. Get everything that you need now, because there's only one certainty, and that is that it is going to continue to go up in price. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Hope to see you this afternoon. Remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Please go to Survival Living Official and go help out Joseph. All right, he's a good person, and he actually puts out very, very good content. All right, many blessings to all of you and your families. I'm Alaska Prepper, and I am out.